Hello, church. Thank you for joining me today. We're in a new series of what it is to be a good neighbor, the art of neighboring. Today, we're going to look at something that we may be familiar with. If you grew up in the church, you would know what I'm talking about once we get to it. My kids used to get frustrated trying to figure out which of my many commands take priority. Which came first? Clean the room, vacuum, go outside, do the lawn, who knows? Ever been frustrated by a boss who gives multiple assignments, all of which are top priority? That's happened to me before. Are you overwhelmed by all that you hear at church, having difficult knowing where to start? What to give priority to? In Mark chapter 12, verses 28 through 34, Jesus is asked by a teacher of the law, which of God's commandments is the greatest, or the weightiest, or the most important. Now, this was a common point of debate, especially amongst the teachers there, and it was more difficult than you might think. We're not talking about just choosing the best of the 10 commandments, which one of the 10 is the best. These guys, the teachers of the law, identified 613 different commands in the Old Testament. So in Jesus' answer, we will see what is most important to God. You will also discover where to start and what comes first. So let's get into Mark chapter 12, 28 through 34. One of the teachers of the religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well. So he asked, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" Jesus replied, "The most important commandment is this. Listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these." The teacher of the religious law replied, "Well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other. And I know it is important to love him with all my heart and all my understanding and all my strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law." Realizing how much the man understood, Jesus said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. The greatest command is to love God with all of yourself. In his answer, Jesus quoted from Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 and 5. It's known as the Shema. If you love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, what's left? What doesn't fit into one of those categories? So what Jesus is telling us is that we need to love God with all that we are. Love God with everything that we have. The entire Old Testament and its 613 laws can be summed up in a single command. So what does it mean to love God? Now, this is a difficult question to answer for our understanding of what love is. Women could have trouble talking about loving God because of what has been done to them in the name of love, being abused but calling it love. Now, men are uncomfortable talking about love. In fact, a lot of us, we don't say, "I love you." We say, "Me too." Talking about love seems to move us into the realm of feelings. Oh no, not feelings. And we're not really good at talking about feelings. That leads us to another difficulty. Our society definition of love tends to make us think of greeting cards sometimes, right? To love someone comes to mean to have warm, sentimental, fuzzy feelings about them. Or on the other side of that is you do whatever makes you feel right. That's love. Just whatever. It's like love, 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 love. But even with these difficulties, we must talk about love, because Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. Now, it isn't to believe in or to follow or to have faith in or even obey God. It's to love God. So let's unpack this idea of loving God and get a picture of what it means and why it can be so difficult. I think you're going to love the results. So what does it mean to love God? How do we go about loving God? In Mark chapter 12, verse 29 to 30, Jesus replied, "The most important command is this." And just kind of going over this so it's stuck in your mind. "Listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and all your strength." Loving God means focusing all our longings on Him. Now think about this. What or who do you love, and why? We love things and people that bring us joy or happiness, pleasure, delight, or significance. I love pecan pie. It brings me pleasure. Really, any kind of pie. It's like I just love eating pie or food in general, right? Just spaghetti, big bowl of spaghetti. I love what I do because I feel significant, helping others understand the scriptures, praying with others. I love my kids, and now I love my grandkids. They bring delight and meaning to my life. It's like, my kids. I love Pam. I feel secure around her. Her words encourage me. We invest our love in those things and people who bring us joy. God calls us to invest all this love in Him. The things that we love provide, in varying degrees, some sort of joy and satisfaction. But from God's point of view, think of it from when He's looking down. These things are not anything compared to Him and what He could provide. Really, you want to play with this little trinket, and I have this big thing for you? Psalm 16:11. "You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever." Psalms 37:4. "Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you your heart's desires." John Piper, in Desiring God, puts it this way: "Take all of your longing and focus it on God until He satisfies it completely. Have pleasure in God. Recognize that in Him, not from Him, is true joy. Focus your love on God. Find in God a satisfaction so full that it fills up all your heart. Find in God a meaning so rich and so deep that it fills up all the aching corners of your soul. Spare no strain or exertion to put yourself in a position to see the all-satisfying grace of God poured out on you. Find in God the riches of knowledge and insight and wisdom that guide and satisfy all that the human mind was meant for." Loving God means actively choosing a passionate pursuit of God. Contrary to popular thinking, love is not merely a feeling. It involves feeling, for sure, but there's more to it than that. It's not just a feeling. Love is a matter of choice. We choose to love. Love is a matter of our will and results in a definite action. The command isn't to have loving feelings. I feel so gushing over God, right? But to love. It's a verb. It's an action. So we must choose to be involved in love. So we choose it. This command is a call to action. Love the Lord. How do you do that? Loving involves passion. We are passionate about the things and the people we love. When we decide to focus on God in this way, in that passionate way, I'm giving my all to God, it results in a life that pursues God. What does God have for me today? God says, "Love me, seek me, pursue me. I will satisfy your longings with my presence and my glory." He will be around us all the time. This is the starting place. This is first. Loving God with all we have means focusing all our longings on Him in passionate pursuit. But Jesus gave not only the first commandment, but the second most important commandment as well. And the second greatest commandment is to love others like yourself. Mark 12:31. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. This comes from Leviticus 19:18. This is a well-known verse, but it's often misunderstood. To love your neighbor is a visible expression of loving God. It's working itself out. What God has poured in, you are pouring out. You can't love God with all you have without it resulting in loving your neighbor, loving those around you. The two are completely interlinked, intertwined. So how do you go about loving others? We are to love them as we love ourselves. To love as yourself is not commanded by God to love yourself. People often think this. This is an assumption. On the contrary, Jesus assumes that everyone loves themselves. This love of self is not referring to self-esteem, positive self-image, a high regard for self, as we've been led to believe. Love yourself. You have to be comfortable with yourself. We are taught to think that the most crucial thing a person could have is a good self-esteem. Now, this isn't what Jesus means. As we all know, not everyone values themselves. I know people that don't value themselves. Jesus assumes that everyone loves themselves. In other words, each of us seeks joy, fulfillment, security, significance, pleasure. These are God-given desires, not evil in and of themselves. We twist it when we get involved, but generally from God, it's pure and holy. We love ourselves in that we seek to preserve and satisfy ourselves. Jesus says, do this for your neighbors. Seek their well-being and seek it as you seek yours. Jesus revolutionized their thinking about who qualifies as a neighbor. And this is the parable, the Good Samaritan, right? In Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through 37. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law, he replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this, and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. In the context of the parable, what does it mean to love someone? Well, it means to go out of your way, rearrange your schedule, use your own resources to meet their need. We are called to place our love on and in God, to find in Him our satisfaction. As we experience that abundant provision, it overflows to others. What we seek and find in God, we offer to others. When God has that first place in our lives, this is where we start, we become better workers, husbands, wives, better friends, neighbors, citizens, parents, children. It will enrich our lives beyond our wildest dreams. So first things first, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second is equally as important. Love your neighbor as yourself.